New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience? Or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
New Thought Media Network is excited to present Divine Science Everywhere, Fridays at 2 p.m. Mountain Time and 4 p.m. Eastern. Come explore a modern experience of divine science. With Reverend Joy Fletcher, Reverend Jeff Radcliff, and Bishop Durrell Watkins. Join us as we open our eyes to divine science everywhere we look. Fridays on New Thought Media Network.
Welcome to Divine Science Everywhere on New Thought Media Network. Divine Science Everywhere features divine science ministers and New Thought guests discussing the principles and practices of divine science. I am Reverend Joy Fletcher, and I'm also excited to share that on June 22nd will mark my 30th anniversary as a divine science minister. So we welcome all of you and join us, and thank you for celebrating with me. It really is an honor. I'd like to introduce one of our co-hosts, Reverend Jeff Radcliff.
Thank you, Reverend Joy. Congratulations on your anniversary coming up.
Thank you.
I'm Reverend Jeff. Thanks for being here with us. I forgot to turn my alarm off on my phone. We're glad to have you with us. Divine Science is everywhere. God is everywhere present, including right here where we are, right there where you are. So welcome. Reverend Durrell.
Hello, everybody. I'm Durrell Watkins. I am the senior minister of the Sunshine Cathedral. I'm in civvies today because I'm about to jump on a plane, but I do normally wear minister drag for these things. I am the senior minister of Sunshine Cathedral. I am the dean of the Samaritan Institute, a divine science ministry school. I am a auxiliary bishop with the Global Justice Institute, and I'm the current president of the Divine Science Federation. So today we are remembering a friend and colleague, Reverend Cindy Lippert, and that's where I'm going. In fact, the reason I'm in short pants and sneakers, I'm just ready to go because I'm on a flight today to go to Albuquerque because this weekend will be her memorial service. But today we're remembering her too. So this is a very special episode for me, and I'm glad you're with us today. Reverend Joy, as always, will now lead us in a time of centering.
Yes, and as we begin, I would like to briefly introduce our guest, Reverend Candace G., and we'll learn a little bit more about her a little further down the show. And I wanted to acknowledge her as a special friend of our friend, Reverend Cindy Lippert.
She'll be eulogizing her. She'll be the main speaker at the memorial service, in fact.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So today we honor the life and legacy of Reverend Cynthia Lippert, who made her transition on April 11th, 2025. A beloved divine science minister and past president of the International New Thought Alliance, Cynthia was a trailblazer and a spiritual teacher whose presence uplifted many. She is survived by her husband, Richard Lippert, family, and many beloved friends. She leaves behind a legacy of love and wisdom. Melinda Kramer states in Divine Science and Healing, immortality is not a hope of the future, it is a reality now. Life is eternal. It cannot die, for God is life. End of quote. So I would like to light a candle in recognition of our dear friend and colleague. And as if you're watching this broadcast, if you would like to do the same or rewind the broadcast and do the same, we invite you to do that. So in lighting this candle, we honor Reverend Cindy Lippert, whose light shone brightly in the world and continues to guide us. May this flame symbolize the eternal truth of divine science, the love that she embodied, and the legacy she leaves in our hearts. Her tenacious spirit that advocated for freedom and justice for all. We also honor the spirit of freedom and justice represented by Juneteenth. May this light guide us on the path of liberation, unity, and love. So let's take a few moments and center ourselves. We honor the journey of the soul, a soul that continues to evolve, expand, and guide us. Her work in this world was not just an effort of the moment, it was a part of her ongoing spiritual journey, deeply rooted in the truth of divine science, freedom, unity, and spiritual awakening. Her journey is a reflection of the eternal path we all walk, one where each step is an opportunity for greater freedom, both inner and outer. We remember that freedom is not just a moment in time, but a continuous journey, a journey of awakening, of shedding the old and stepping into the new. Juneteenth also calls us to reflect on this, to acknowledge the struggle for freedom is ongoing and that true freedom is an inner experience of the soul. Just as Reverend Cindy dedicated herself to this work, knowing that her own soul was on a path of growth, we too are invited to recognize our own journey toward freedom and light. So as we reflect on Juneteenth, we feel the deep truth that love for those who struggled for justice and liberation, including Reverend Cindy, are never truly gone. Their spirits are not only in the past, they are with us, guiding us in ways that we cannot always see, but we definitely can feel. They are part of the eternal light of freedom, continuing to shine, continuing to guide us toward a world where justice, peace, and unity are realized for all. The flame that Cindy ignited within the spiritual and divine science community burns brightly within each of us, reminding us of our own potential to grow, to evolve, and to contribute to the ongoing journey of freedom. In this sacred moment, we honor the journey of Cindy's soul, one that continues to unfold in the eternal flow of divine love. We know that she, like all of those who have crossed over, is part of the eternal light that surrounds and supports us. May we too live in such a way that her legacy lives on through our own actions, through our continued commitment to justice, and through our dedication to the spiritual freedom of all things. Well done, good and faithful servant. Thank you. And so it is.
And so it is.
And now, Reverend Jeff, would you like to share something?
I would indeed. when I first heard that Reverend Cindy had passed, the first thing I thought was another soul set free, basically, because I knew that there were issues that she had had just recently that allowed her to transcend this physical form. And so it's right that we honor her this particular weekend because there's a lot going on when it comes to liberation. Yesterday was Juneteenth, which marked the end of slavery in the United States. Finally, 2 years after President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, troops from the Union entered Galveston, Texas, to let the enslaved people there know, 2 years after the fact, that they were free. They stayed in enslavement longer than the rest of the country. This was 160 years ago. On June 20th, 1863, 2 years earlier, the state of West Virginia came into being. It broke away from the slave state of Virginia to join the Union, and it was the only state to be formed during the Civil War. And of course, if you watch the Friday Fireside Chat on New Thought Media Network, I'm generally there with Michael Mangus. Reverend Michael likes to tell people that I'm from Tennessee, but I am originally from West Virginia. And I have a T-shirt, and I should have worn it today. I never thought about it. It says my home. It says I live in Tennessee. My home is in West Virginia. So, at any rate, today is West Virginia's birthday. Juneteenth also not only marks freedom, but it is there for us to remember the struggles of African American people. And so I got to thinking about African Americans in the New Thought movement. And we've been an accepting movement, the entire New Thought movement, Divine Science, Unity, Centers for Spiritual Living. We've been inclusive of a lot of different groups for a lot of years, but there is very little to tell about the early days of New Thought and African American people. The best source that I was able to find came from Unity, where when Charles and Myrtle Fillmore set up their headquarters near Kansas City, there was already a fairly large Black settlement there. And when they started Unity, and they started it as a school, and they were giving classes in person and by correspondence, and they did not discriminate. They allowed Black students as well. However, given the cultural mores of the day and the cultural bend of things, unfortunately, Unity was still a bit segregated, and for the longest time, Black students were not given the same opportunities as white students. They began to house students. Rickard Fillmore, Charles and Myrtle's second son, established a ministerial training program at Unity Farm and invited students to come live there while they studied. However, Black students weren't allowed to live on the campus grounds. They had to commute back and forth from Kansas City. And that's just the way it was for the longest time. Finally, the housing policy was challenged by a Black-owned newspaper in Kansas City called The Call. They were founded in 1919. They're still in existence today. And they called out Unity for being discriminatory on this. Now, in the meantime, in 1952, the first two Black ministers were ordained in Unity, Mabel Butts and Helen Moulton, and it was a year later that Reverend Johnny Coleman started her training there. And one day she was on her way to class. She was living at, I think it was the Y, at the YWCA in Kansas City. Her car broke down in the rain, and so she had to walk into Unity that way. and her classmates found out about it. They were not happy. She said, I can't take it anymore. I'm leaving. I'm going back home. They would not accept it, so they signed a petition urging Unity to allow her and the other Black students to have some sort of accommodation on campus. One of Dr. Coleman's classmates, everybody knows because she is the world-renowned Reverend Dr. Catherine Ponder. So Catherine Ponder and Johnny Coleman were classmates, and Unity offered Johnny a cottage at the end of the farm where some of the workers lived. It was not a nice place. She said there was no heat, but she said, fine, I'll take it. And she ended up graduating and starting her church in Chicago, which later she broke away from Unity to have the freedom to found a new organization called Universal Foundation for Better Living. So Johnny was all about freedom because she was free to go to this place. She broke the constraints of the discrimination when it came to housing. And then later on, she founded a New Thought denomination, which was specifically created to bring in more Black participation in the Unity movement, and then later into the greater New Thought movement. So for the most part, Unity was desegregated by that point. But there is one more story that shows that Unity was just still hanging on just a little bit. There's a story about the summer of 1963. There was a youth conference at Unity Village. White kids were swimming. The pool was still segregated. And Reverend Ralph Rea was supervising that day. And finally he said, this is enough. Everybody gets to swim. The Black kids jumped into the water. And from then on, the pool was desegregated. And so that is how Unity finally caught up with the desegregation movement. So June 19th and June 20th, there's a lot of freedom symbolism going on right now. And so we are very glad to be part of that. And we welcome you to join with us as we celebrate not only Juneteenth, but also our friend and colleague, Reverend Cindy Lippert. Thank you, Reverend Joy, for allowing me to speak that.
Thank you.
Well, now we want you to know about a special event coming up in November. We're charting a new course. The Divine Science Federation International and the Divine Science Ministers Association invite you to join us for a 5-day, 4-night cruise aboard the MSC Seashore. We're charting a new course at sea on this 5-day retreat. It starts at just $299. 5 days, 4 nights at sea, $299. It departs November the 2nd. This all-inclusive getaway features free bus transfers from Ocala, the Villages, and Leesburg here in Florida. Plus, you have free Wi-Fi throughout your journey. You can enjoy an open bar access throughout the entire trip for only $99. You'll explore Nassau and Paradise Island, the Bahamas, and relax on an exclusive private island, Ocean Cay Marine Reserve. Special perks from the Happening Out Travel Club include private happy hours and exclusive dining events. You can book your spot with a $199 deposit. If you haven't heard of Divine Science, maybe you stumbled onto us today, you do know what it's about. If you like Oprah and Chopra, Louise Hay and Michael Beckwith, spirituality that is based on love rather than dogma, or you're familiar with Silent Unity and the Daily Word, or the progressive, positive, and practical spirituality of the Sunshine Cathedral community, then you already have a pretty good understanding of Divine Science, a New Thought school of thought that has been around since 1888. Our basis, as Nona Brooks used to say, is omnipresence. We always go back to our basis, which is omnipresence. This nonprofit 501c3 trip is provided at reduced prices because of the charity fundraising educational mission of the Travel Club. And so we invite you to join us on this amazing cruise for fun, connection, and spiritual renewal. Remember, it's 5 days, 4 nights. It's in November, chilly November in a lot of places, but not in the Bahamas, not in Florida. and it's only $299. You put $199 down, you pay off the other $100 as you will. If you want some extra party time, $99 gets you open bar for the whole trip. And so it's a pretty great deal. I hope you'll join us. Of course, we've got some teaching, some praying, but also just a lot of rest and relaxation. And it's just going to be an amazing week. It's being hosted by Divine Science Federation and Divine Science Ministers Association, but it's open to everyone, the old-timey New Thought people and people who've just discovered it recently. This will be a perfect time to learn more about it and to meet people in the movement. So for more information or to reserve your spot, please visit divinesciencefederation.org and click on events. And now, before we reflect further about Reverend Cindy's remarkable life and talk with one of her dearest friends and colleagues, Reverend G, let's take a quick commercial break here at Divine Science Everywhere on New Thought Media Network.
New Thought Media Network is excited to present Divine Science Everywhere, Fridays at 2 p.m. Mountain Time and 4 p.m. Eastern. Come explore a modern experience of divine science with Reverend Joy Fletcher, Reverend Jeff Radcliff, and Bishop Durrell Watkins. Join us as we open our eyes to divine science everywhere we look. Fridays on New Thought Media Network.
Welcome back. Now it is my honor to introduce our guest and beloved friend and colleague of our friend, Reverend Cindy Lippert. Reverend Candace G. is a practitioner emeritus and ordained minister, trained at the Agape International Spiritual Center in Beverly Hills, California, under the tutelage of Michael Bernard Beckwith. Candace is a servant leader. While at Agape over the course of 29 years, she has directed and co-directed 4 ministries. She has taught her signature course, Prosperity from the Inside Out, at Agape, as well as other spiritual centers and business venues throughout the United States. Candace is a graduate of the Executive Leadership Program at the Anderson School of Business at UCLA. She formerly served on the executive board of the International New Thought Alliance. Candace has also spoken at various New Thought spiritual communities over the years and has attended and participated in a variety of New Thought conferences and gatherings over the past 30 years, including Revelation, Panorama of Truth, Divine Science, INTA, and many others. Reverend Candace wholeheartedly believes in a world that works for everyone and loves sharing the good news with all who wish to wake up to our inherent divine nature. So welcome, Reverend Candace.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Joy. Good to see you. Good to see you, Reverend Jeff and Bishop Durrell. I'm honored to be here to say any words about Reverend Cindy Lippert, whom I did meet at one of those conferences in 2008 in Cancun, and she was a keynote speaker there. During that time, she was serving as the president of the International New Thought Alliance, and that was my first introduction to her, and we hit it off immediately in such a way that we just became besties almost, and I'm sure there's other people that feel that way about her, but she was amazing. She's taught me a lot about ministry. And Cindy was so affable. She was approachable and easy to talk to. And over the course of our time together, it's been some 17 years now, I learned so much from her, not only by what she would say and share with me, but just by osmosis, just watching her. And we just became very good friends, and we talked all of the time about everything and anything. There was really no subject off limits, and there was always a spiritual, undertone with everything that we talked about. And it could be anything happening in the world to esoteric stuff. But at the end of our conversations, we would end it with, well, we've solved a lot of the world's challenges today. And that's how we always ended it. And what I love about her, one of the things that was just great as a friend, is that we made a rule in the beginning, an agreement, that when we were on we were talking on the phone, because she lived in Arizona and then subsequently Albuquerque, and I'm in Southern California, that we might have to go at the drop of a moment. So I would say, hey, Cindy, gotta go. And she would just click. Or she would say, Candace, I gotta go. And click. And I love that. That is so rare, because oftentimes people say, well, I need to go, and then they go on and continue, but not her. So I love that little personal tidbit about her. But she was, Cindy was a scholar. She taught me about Ann Kuna, her experience with her, Sally Taylor, Mary Tompkin, many other people. And so that your audience understands, I did come out originally of religious science. I've been, my spiritual home is the Agape International Spiritual Center. And I became interested in new thought, just new thought, and the different bodies of new thought and the teachings of new thought. So I was always hungry to have a smorgasbord of what our teaching is. And so I really enjoyed, getting to learn more and more about divine science through Cindy, and also subsequently Bishop Durrell. So it's been a joy. And Cindy would sometimes preach to me on the phone. She would give a sermon on the phone when she was in Passion. So while I met her, I guess you could say, close to the end of her formal church pulpit career, when she stepped back from that, she continued, with her, really was an online ministry with Facebook, but it was humorous and it was funny. And, Cindy was brilliant in my estimation, and she had a great intellect and an amazing heart, and always had a word up for everyone. And everything that she is to me just sits right here, in so much joy and appreciation for her life, and for her, just being so giving, at least towards me. She was very giving in how she was with me, and her countenance, and what she would say to me. And we both share a very dry sense of humor, so we laughed a lot. We just laughed and laughed and laughed. And I am just so grateful that she crossed my path. I would say to your, out of all of the people and conferences that I have met over the years, wonderful, wonderful people, she is really at the kind of the, you don't want to say top or bottom, but she's just up in the very high elevation in my consciousness for who she was and is to me, and so many others. I'm sure so many people feel the way that I feel, that had a personal and close relationship with her, where they could say anything, they could confide, they could vent if they had a question about something. She was very good. So I would tell you that while she is my dear friend, she was also a colleague, and she was also a mentor. She was many things to me, and I just hold her in the highest. I really do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate hearing those memories of Cindy. Cindy and I had a similar path for a bit. We both were spiritual leaders of Unity Church, and part of the field licensing program. and both of us were already divine science ministers. And it's interesting because each of us at a different time discovered that shoe didn't fit being a spiritual leader with a Unity Church. So I went off and had my own adventures with hospice and continue to. And Cindy had hers, and I admired how she reinvented herself and became a model. And she was a beautiful model, beautiful, and such poise, and yet you could feel a genuine spirit through the photos of, during her modeling adventure. And she was just so inspirational. I loved hearing her speak a couple times, and as we crossed paths, and she inspired me. She just inspired and continues to inspire me. So thank you. Yeah.
I was also inspired by what you had to say about Cindy, because you got to know her a little more intimately than I did. I knew her for years on Facebook, and I don't know how I ended up getting to meet her. At the time, I was studying divine science off to the side. I knew that they existed, but they weren't my focus, because at the time I was more heavily into religious science. And so I was starting to take science of mind classes, and had started a group with a lady in Australia, an online group for people who did not have a New Thought presence in their local community. And I think that's probably how I ended up meeting Cindy, because I had a lot of ministers come in as part of the group. They offered practitioner services, things of that nature. But what struck me about Cindy was how funny she was, because she always added a lot to our conversational threads online, and she had a lot of funny things to say. I think one of my favorite things from her was when she talked about her granddaughter Abby, because Abby evidently has inherited her grandmother's sense of humor. And Cindy would post these online. She'd say funny things that Abby would say, and she called them Abbytudes, like the Beatitudes. And my favorite, and I talked to Cindy about this on the phone after she posted it, and we were laughing our heads off about it. Apparently her son had taken Abby and her sister to breakfast, and Abby was not a fan of what she was eating. And the server walked by the waitress and said, what's wrong? You're not eating your breakfast. And Abby says, well, it doesn't taste very good. And the server said, well, would you like me to take it back to the kitchen and have them remake it for you? And this is where Cindy paused, and the inflection that she used, I could catch it when I read it, and then I caught it when she actually spoke it to me. Abby said, well, how's that going to help? So that was spectacular from Cindy. And when I finally got the chance to meet her in face to face was in 2019 at the International New Thought Alliance Congress in Nashville, where I was living. And it felt really great to finally give this lady a hug, somebody that I had been friends with for like nearly a decade at that point online. And it was only until our mutual friend, Galen McDowell from Christ Unity Temple in Chicago showed up, and we got a picture together, that I realized once again, I was the shortest one in the damn photo, because Cindy was taller than me. Galen towers over everybody. But Cindy said, oh, don't let it matter to you, because you're a giant spiritually. Aww. So she was also a great encourager. So Candace, I shared my favorite Cindy story. Oh, and one other thing, and I want to ask you about yours. One other thing that sticks out in my mind about Cindy, well, two things actually. Number one, she always talked about her stuffed buffalo that she kept by the fireplace. She called him Billy the buffalo, and there was Bird, who sat on top of Billy. And Cindy and I also had a friendly little rivalry when it comes to October 25th. because that is my birthday, and that is also the day that she and Richard got married in 1980. So we always, around October 25th, our birthday, her anniversary, we'd have this friendly little tug of war over who got to own the day, because we each laid claim to that particular day. So, Candace, what I'd like to ask you is share your favorite funny Cindy story. And I'm sure you've got a lot more than I do.
Oh my goodness. That's a challenge. I have a lot of good stories, but I think one of my favorite times with Cindy that was really meaningful to me was when, I think it was 2014, I believe, I'm not sure, 13 or 14, she went to Sunshine Cathedral to speak. And she hadn't spoken for a while, and she was ready, and Bishop Durrell invited her. And so I flew out there for that, and to support her and just be there. And it was just a great memory. It's actually my first introduction to your spiritual center, Durrell. And we just had a great time there. And then again, she decided to come to Nashville in 2019, and so I was working on her, talking her into that, and we had a great time there. But any one memory is hard because there were so many, and most of them were through phone calls. And honestly, what I feel for her is just so much regard. I have so much regard and respect for her and admiration for her, the way she lived her life. But she was so funny. Cindy was funny. Okay. And I love ministers who have a really good sense of humor. And she had one. She was a balanced person to me. She was balanced overall, and she would talk about, she would say stuff to me like, she would share sometimes, I feel out of whack, and I would say, you know what, well, then you're very balanced and you're in balance or something. And we would just start laughing, and I just loved how she carried herself, and was with people. And she would just share a variety of things over the years, like, when she was counseling people, she did a lot of that. She did a lot of things that she didn't talk about. She was always active. She was always busy. And I did also love how she reinvented herself. She, decided, at a later age, I'm gonna model and I'm gonna act, and she had shared with me, she had thought if you went into acting first, that ministry might have been a little bit easier, like how the depth of what she learned through what that is. When you really are doing it seriously, you're throwing your whole self in and you bare yourself, so to speak. And, it's similar when, as us as ministers, when we're, living a transparent life. And we would just talk about those two things, just being about open and available and inclusive and receptive in our demeanor. So I really appreciated that about her. And I also got to, this is not exactly the answer to your question, but it's a great joy for me, Reverend Jeff. I got to watch Cindy. When I say watch, I mean watch, I don't mean necessarily this, but watch her with my inner awareness on her own growth and evolution from the time I met her till the time she left. She initially we would talk about things and stuff that she wasn't real keen to discuss, and later became very vociferous. And so I just watched her evolve and grow, as we all do. All of us not only do that, but if we are looking with our interior awareness, I think we can recognize that with each of us as you move along the years. And so that was very rich for me to be able to see that and watch her changing and her growth. And I have so many good memories. I really do. Too many to name.
Thank you.
You may wind up naming another one or two after all. We got about 15 more minutes, so we'll probably drag some out of you. I met Cindy sort of in crisis. Uh, I met her at a Chicago conference, an INTA conference, and she spoke, and I was wowed. And there was the INTA board, and she was on it at the time, was considering doing their next Congress in Fort Lauderdale. And we had never met personally. And for some reason, she spoke so powerfully, like it just had to be there. And, I had to be the conference chair or whatever. I didn't know her. And I didn't know a lot of them. I was still new in INT in this day. So a lot of them was like, wait a minute, who even is he? And blah, blah. But she put her foot down, just has to, and it did. And then she, of course, she spoke at that conference and she was wonderful. But within a year or two of that, I went through a debilitating depression. I've have a diagnosed medical depression anyway, but it's always been medically handled, medically managed, and it was not managed. I mean, I'd gone through some terrible or sad things, grief, and it had triggered it, and nothing was working. And I called her. All the people I've ever met, all the people I knew in the world, I just called her. I don't know why. It's just something in me said she's the one. She'll help, and she did. And what I didn't know is that she had been suffering from burnout, which is similar. And then she would tell me later that me getting her to help me also helped her. And we sort of helped each other through that. And that was a very bonding experience for us. So she did speak she spoke at the conference I hosted. She spoke at a Divine Science conference we had online. She spoke in my pulpit a couple of times. She married me and my husband. We had 11 clergy participate in the ceremony, but she was the one who handed out the vows and did the pronouncement. So she's actually the one who sealed the deal. Who else? I had my lifelong best friend Shauna met her, and Shauna died a few years ago of cancer, and they met at my wedding. They became immediate like best friends online because once you meet Cindy, you can't let her go. And so when my friend Shauna was going through her final days with her cancer journey, Cindy was very present to her and very helpful to her. And she appreciated that so much. Cindy herself was a cancer survivor. Years and years ago, she had a colon cancer, and it was successfully removed surgically. She refused any other treatment, and it never had a relapse. And so she was a healer. She was an example of healing. And even she used to say the two things about death is that she really hoped reincarnation wasn't real because she didn't want to do it again. And that when it's time that she would go in her sleep, which is ultimately what happened. She had an event. They went to the hospital. She just never woke up. And a few days later left her body. But she was that sort of a manifester, though. Like if she said a thing, just it was just a matter of time then before it was going to happen, in just that way. Her way of praying was a bit different. When I would ask her to pray for me, she would say, well, what is it you're looking for? What is it you want? How do you see this unfolding? If it was the best possible scenario, what did it look like? And I would say whatever, and then her prayer was, "It's done." That was her whole treatment. And we would do that for each other all the time after that. I want you to pray for me. I want blah, blah, blah. And I would say, "It's done." And she said that she and her mentor, and Kuneth, would do that. That's where she learned that. And Kuneth was a mentee of Catherine Ponder, Cindy a mentee of Kuneth, me a mentee of Cindy. There's this whole little line going on. But I got to I had some email exchanges with Ann Kuneth before she got to where she couldn't do that. And I almost cried when she said, "Oh, I know so much about you. Cindy talks about you all the time." That made me very, very happy. So I got to meet her mentor, and her mentor already knew something about me. So those are just some of my, she saved me in some ways, and became one of my dearest friends. And because of her, I know Richard, her husband, and he's been we've been in contact a lot lately, and because of her, one more friend in the world I have. And so her husband. So she would. I don't like to talk on the phone, but for her I would. And sometimes for her I would even make the effort. And if I would call her, she would answer the phone telling a story. She wouldn't say hello. She would just be right, like we'd already been talking for 6 minutes, and this was the next thing. That's how she would answer the phone. And then when it was over, it would be like, okay, so bye. But if I called her, I called her mostly when I was driving. And then when I would get to where I was going, I had to, time to go, whatever. And she would say, okay, I guess I've been used. Bye. But then I wouldn't even have to say, I gotta go. She could just tell, wait a minute, I can tell I've been used, right? I'm like, yeah, I gotta go. So yeah, she would, I love that. They said, well, I guess I've been used, just to fill the time. Of course, that's not what it was, but it was hysterically funny to me. That's how she would always say, I've been used. She was a committed ally to the LGBT community, so much so that she stopped being an ally and started being a friend, and stopped being a friend and started being an advocate, and stopped being an advocate and started being a member of the LGBTQIAA plus community. She was one of the A's, and identified as part of the queer community. So she was a model of using your privilege to help someone who doesn't have it. And the people in Sunshine Cathedral adored her. She was a member of our global fellowship, and she'd be on almost every Sunday online. And she'd be constantly just interacting with other people online. They became her friends on Facebook. They were devastated when she died. Had never been in a room with her. She was just that active and that loving. And so, yeah, people. I was surprised at how she not only liked my church, she became a part of it. She did online programs with us. She spoke several times. She interacted with people. She helped me with classes. I taught a class on a book that she and her husband Richard had researched about Emma. So it was no, it was Katie. It was Emily Katie was the book they did on. And so yeah, she just became so much a part of, from being my practitioner to being my super good friend to being a part of my ministry. And then had the nerve to die. I've almost forgiven her for it, but I mean, I was not done with her. I had a long list of Cindy stuff to do yet, and so now we have to transfer all that to Candace, who has been present through all of this. I think I met Cindy maybe the year after she did, so I've kind of just been bumping into Candace and hanging on to her for several years now. And so that our Cindy connection is something that I super value. Save me, Candace. Say something so I don't say anything else, because I'm going to.
I can say a lot. I just same ditto with all of that, And I was fortunate enough to, when she did go through her burnout, to be able to be there for her, and she always acknowledged that. She was always grateful for that, and Cindy was something else. I'm trying to keep everything very in a high vibration, which is why I'm not saying everything that I know, but she just had a great sense of humor, and we could laugh about anything, and she would say something to me, and then she would say an expletive and call me a name, but it was a loving thing, and I'm like, yeah. And I have to tell you, with what you just shared, she transitioned exactly how she said she wanted to. And I was crushed and devastated. I will not lie to you. I sobbed uncontrollably for 3 weeks. I mean, I was just like, what? And I'm like, what? And then I was calling her a name once. I'm like, really? You had to do this to me now, like as if I'm the only person that loved or cared for Cindy. And I could just hear her as clear as day. I still hear it. Candace, I told you how this was going to go. And it's been a comfort to me to hear that voice, because I know it is so. And she, you know, she had such a zest for people in life. And yes, she totally embraced the LGBTQ community. And I will tell you that when I met her at Panorama of Truth, we became, you know, we started communicating. And then I had shared with her that I am a lesbian, and I have, you know, at that time, my wife and I were not married, we were partners, but we've been together almost 28 years. But I shared with her, you know, that I was a lesbian, and Cindy says, well, I've never had a lesbian friend before. You'll be the first. You know, just matter of fact, that was who she was. And I'm like, okay, that sounds good to me. So we always connected, and she really did. She really, truly cared about our community. She cared about everyone.
Yeah.
She loved everybody she came in contact in ministry. She was proud that she had an African-American choir director at her church with music and, you know, spirited music, and, you know, just some of the things that she shared with me over the years that brought her joyful memories.
Yeah.
So that was really, you know, that was exciting to just hear her share. I could literally listen to her talk for hours.
Yeah.
That's how much of a sponge I am with Cindy. And, you know, as she did get into her modeling and acting work, and I also have done, you know, business management in Hollywood for my, you know, whole career. So we got to talk about the business a lot because I've been in the business for a very long time. I always share with people I'm sort of in the kitchen and the back because I'm dealing with their finances and, you know, stuff like that, contracts, not the creative aspect. But we just got to share a lot about how that, you know, fused into my own ministry, you know, how those two are together. And so it was just, we had wonderful conversations. And, you know, Cindy, I remember when I first met her, I don't know when I got this, but, you know, when she wrote, her and her husband wrote this book, you know, and it's very good. And I got it out the other day and I was looking at it, and this is when I first met her, so I don't know her. And she says, right, I don't know her that well. She says to Candace, enjoy your life. Why not? That's what she wrote in my book. Okay.
Did she ever tell? Oh, go ahead.
Thanks for your friendship and generous spirit. So,
Nice. Did she ever tell you, there's nothing wrong with you, you're just a lazy bitch?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She told me that. So there's nothing wrong with you. You're just a lazy bitch.
Yeah.
And then you laugh, and sure enough, nothing was wrong anymore.
Yeah.
There was something about her that just kind of made you want to do it, just to hear her say, "You did good."
You did good.
And she was the only person. I'm not a big fan of Western themed TV and movies, but she's the only one that could get me to watch a Western. And because she was in it, and every week I'd say, "Is this your episode? Is this your episode?" Finally, she said, "This is my episode.
Yeah.
Watch." So, yeah.
And now we need to watch a quick commercial because then we got to come back and wrap this all up. But yeah, this has been such an engaging conversation. We've almost missed our commercial break, but we're going to make that up right now.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Here we are.
And thank you for joining us
Yes,
this
we're going to
week.
have to give this to Reverend Joy to take us out of here. We've got about 3 more minutes.
All
But,
right.
right.
All
But
right.
Candace, before we do that, why don't you give us a last word about our friend and colleague and mentor, Cindy Lippert, and then if you will just pass it on to Reverend Joy.
Cindy was the bomb. She
Yeah.
exploded love and joy and possibility and positivity. And she is a life well lived. She did great with her incarnation. She impacted a lot of people, and I will never, ever, ever forget her. She lives on in me as long as I breathe.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for your reflections and sharing. And we remember the light of those who have crossed into the invisible realm, and their light and love and guidance remains with us. Reverend Cindy's love, teachings, and light continue to guide us, and her presence is felt in the work that we do in the world today.
Absolutely.
May we honor her legacy by living fully. Why not? Loving deeply and serving in the ways that she did. And so it is.
And so it is.
Please join us next week as we have special guests, Reverend Dr. Christine Emmerling and Reverend Cherie Garrett, mother and daughter, second and third divine science ministers, and they'll talk about their divine science journey. So until next week, remember, divine science everywhere means that God is in all, through all. And join us again on the New Thought Media Network. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Travel safe, Candace and Durrell.
Yes, yes, yes.